Next speaker is Gordon Bissett from Ladbrokes. Gordon has been employed by Ladbrokes for 31 years. He is based in London, has been responsible for the management of 2 Greyhound tracks in England for more than 20 years. Gordon created and implemented innovative track design, drainage systems, lure system, and trap mechanism. He is a big fan of Greyhound racing, positive thinking, and great French wine, red wine. I welcome Gordon.
Thanks for the introduction. I enjoyed Dave's presentation because we used to own Vernons and I wondered what had happened to them. So, interesting changes. I have a set of 6 slides which I'd like to take you through. You will think I'm talking about the American Greyhound track industry when you see some of these statistics. The slides all follow the same kind of format. We start in 1990, which is the first bar, and we jump forward 10 years, and you can see very little change in that decade. Then we have a 5-year jump, and then each of the last 5 years are shown singly. We're still open for business. There were 37 tracks 20 years ago, and currently we are down to 26. So, same kind of situation as ourselves. Our attendances have been absolutely hammered. 20 years ago there were 4 million racegoers attending our tracks. Changed very little up until the year 2000. And you can see that over the last 3 years, as the recession has started to take a chunk out of everything in the high street and out of retail, and our attendances have plunged quite dramatically. Between 2008 and 2009, that's a 13% decline in attendances, 1-3. And the business itself has changed considerably. When the promoters try and bring people in through the gate, they've been offering more and more cutthroat packages, cutthroat prices, virtually giving it away. So not only are there fewer tracks, there's a lot fewer people coming through the turnstiles. This shows the on-track tote turnover. In the UK, the only place that, in the US, the only place that you can really have a bet is either in a casino or in a racetrack. In the UK, that is not the case. There are over 10,000 betting shops in the high streets. Ladbrokes own 2,200 of them. I should know how many there are. And our competitor is really on the high street, in the locality where the individual customer lives. On top of that, we have online betting, telephone betting, any kind of betting that you want to think of, then it is legal in the UK. We also have person-to-person betting, where you don't have to go to the shop, you simply have a bet with someone else. The biggest player there is a company called Betfair. It's a brilliant business model. I wish I'd thought of it myself, because the amount of money they take dwarfs any other kind of betting that we have. But what's happened with the on-track turnover is we don't commingle. There is so little commingling in the UK that you would think, oh, it's ripe for anyone else to get involved with. But it's not worked. Tote betting is not a great attraction. The problem with pool or any kind of pool betting is you can only win what the other person has put into the pool. Whereas with the bookmaking, you can bet any amount of money and win any amount of money. So the tote has never been that popular. Despite that, what you see here is a turnover shared between 25 tracks of about 50 million sterling. The interesting aspect of the tote turnover is that if you divide the tote turnover by the number of racegoers, you get the same spend per head now as existed 20 years ago. I don't know if that's true in the US, but it's certainly true in the UK. A concern for me is the number of greyhounds that are available within the UK. 80% of our greyhounds come from Ireland, the other 20% are British bred. What you can see here is that there is a consistency to the number of greyhounds that we have available for our tracks, regardless of how many tracks we have. Dividing the number of greyhounds by the number of tracks, or by the number of meetings, or by the number of races, gives a fairly constant figure. Our concern was that the number of tracks decline. That means that the amount of breeding that takes place will also decline. So far in the UK, that isn't the case. What has happened is that greyhounds have become a lot cheaper. You've heard of buy one, get one free? Well, we have that with the dogs. Every track operator here knows that legislation is a major issue. It wasn't really a major issue in the UK until 2006. What I have here is the details of a press release that came out on Friday the 30th of June, which was going to be published in the Sunday Times. The Sunday Times is the biggest newspaper in the UK. It says, the secret slaughter of at least 10,000 racing greyhounds by one man has been exposed by an undercover investigation. For the past 15 years, David Smith, the builder's merchant, has been reportedly killing healthy greyhounds no longer considered by their trainers to be fast enough to race. He buries them in a 1 acre plot at the back of his home in Seaham, County Durham. The Sunday Times covertly filmed Smith on 2 consecutive days receiving greyhounds from trainers before killing them with a bolt gun, dumping them in the plot and covering over the graves using a mechanical digger. An undercover reporter, it took him 3 years to fill the field, at which point he simply started all over again. Within a year the bodies have gone, said Smith. It takes me about 3 years to get across there, and by the time I get there, I can start back here again and there are only a few bones left. According to Sunday Times calculations and testimony of 2 racing insiders, it is conservatively estimated Smith has killed at least 10,000 dogs. The scandal, described as a canine killing field by one campaigner, has shocked the government and the greyhound industry, which attracts bets of $2.5 billion a year. Ben Bradshaw, Minister for Animal Welfare, said Smith's business was horrendous and promised an inquiry into the slaughter. Now, the greyhound industry in the UK ignored that story. It shouldn't have. The story itself was accompanied by 2 photographs on the front page of the national newspaper. One of the photographs showed Smith with 2 greyhounds lying dead in a wheelbarrow. Now, we mounted an investigation and denied that it was anything like 10,000 greyhounds. We mounted an investigation. We tried to diminish the impact that that one story had. This legislation came about directly as a consequence of the fact that we had closed our eyes to that horrendous story. What we have here are 2 acts of Parliament. The first one gave 5 basic laws and 5 basic freedoms to all animals, including greyhounds. Also gave them to lobsters. You know, it's now illegal to put a live lobster into a pan of boiling water. You have to humanely kill it first. I mean, I thought the American law was daft, but not the case. The bigger issue for us is the welfare of racing greyhound regulations, and that comes into effect on April the 6th this year. And they trailed all the information. It runs to about 10 pages. It is daft legislation. Things like you have to be able to observe a greyhound when it's in a racing kennel. The integrity of the kennel has been destroyed as a result of that. There are a whole load of things that the vet room has to have about 20 different conditions attached to it. A whole load of legislation which has been drafted and agreed by the Department of Food and Farming and Rural Affairs, and by people who don't know anything about greyhound racing. But it all comes back to one story which wasn't true, and I don't believe it was ever true. I mean, yes, there were some greyhounds there, but that has come back in business. Now, the biggest bear trap that has been set in new regulations is that they have said that every greyhound, before it sets foot on the track, has to be microchipped. This is our success story. This is Angie Fotheringham. She's a senior paddock steward for me in our track in Crayford in Kent. 6 months ago, the government said, look, you're going to have to microchip all your dogs. Angie went along, became trained as a chipper, a microchipper, and in one day she chipped 150 greyhounds. This law that comes in on April the 6th was supposed to destroy greyhound racing in the UK by making it so difficult to be able to race greyhounds. Right now, every dog in the UK at our tracks has already been microchipped, thanks to Angie and her colleagues. So, in summary, we've got a similar industry to yourselves. We have a falling number of greyhound tracks, we have a falling attendance, we have a rapidly declining tote turnover, we have legislation which is being brought in to try and, I think, probably destroy greyhound racing. We have a problem with our media, we have a problem with our PR, we have a problem with our image, but we're not downhearted. We're still here, we're still operating. One of my general managers who has 2 small children told me I have to keep greyhound racing in the UK operating for the next 18 years so that he can get his children through university and so that he can pay his mortgage. I would like to be around in 18 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gordon. It's interesting to hear not that misery loves company, but basically